In the bustling city of Portland, where the streets were always busy and life moved at a frantic pace, lived a woman named Emily Scott. Emily, in her mid-30s, had a career that kept her on her toes, working long hours as a graphic designer for a major marketing firm. Her life was one of deadlines, emails, and client meetings, leaving her little time for much else. Although she had a close group of friends and a comfortable apartment, something always felt missing. One rainy afternoon in November, Emily was walking home from the office. The city streets were slick with rain, and pedestrians hurried along, shielding themselves from the cold downpour. Emily, lost in her thoughts about an upcoming project, almost didn't notice the small, shivering dog huddled in the corner of an alleyway. The sight stopped her in her tracks. The dog was skinny, its fur matted with dirt and rain, and it looked as though it hadn't eaten in days. Its brown eyes were wide and filled with fear, and it pressed itself against the wall as people passed by, as if trying to disappear. Emily's heart ached at the sight. She hesitated for only a moment before approaching the dog, careful not to frighten it. Kneeling down, she spoke softly, her voice barely audible above the rain. "Hey there, it's okay. I won't hurt you." The dog didn't move at first, its eyes darting nervously between Emily and the people passing by. But after a few moments, it cautiously lifted its head, looking at her with an expression that seemed almost pleading. Emily slowly reached out her hand, offering the dog a bit of food from her bag, a half-eaten sandwich she'd planned to finish later. The dog sniffed the air tentatively before inching closer, taking the food from her hand and devouring it hungrily. "That's it, good girl," Emily whispered, noticing for the first time that the dog was a female. "You must be starving." Without thinking twice, Emily made a decision. She couldn't leave the dog out here in the rain, cold and alone. She took off her coat and gently wrapped it around the trembling animal before scooping her up into her arms. "We're going home," she said softly. The dog didn't resist. In fact, she seemed to relax in Emily's arms, as if she knew she was finally safe. Emily carried her all the way back to her apartment, careful not to jostle her too much, feeling a deep sense of responsibility for the small creature in her care. When they arrived at Emily's apartment, the dog was hesitant to enter, as if unsure of this new environment. But after some coaxing and a warm meal, she began to settle in. Emily bathed her, gently washing away the dirt and grime that clung to her fur, and wrapped her in a soft towel. She was a beautiful dog, despite her rough condition, a mix of shepherd and lab, with kind, soulful eyes and a gentle demeanor. Emily named her Bella. Over the next few weeks, Bella became a part of Emily's life in a way that she hadn't expected. The dog, once timid and afraid, grew more confident under Emily's care. She would follow Emily around the apartment, her tail wagging with happiness, and greet her at the door each evening when she returned from work. For Emily, Bella filled a void she hadn't even realized was there. Coming home to the dog's warm presence after a long day made the loneliness she often felt fade away. Bella became her constant companion, and the bond between them grew stronger with each passing day. But as much as Emily loved Bella, she knew from the start that their time together might not last forever. Despite her efforts to find out where Bella had come from, putting up posters, contacting local shelters, no one came forward to claim the dog. Still, in the back of her mind, Emily feared that Bella might belong to someone else, that one day she would have to let her go. That day came sooner than Emily had expected. One afternoon, about 6 months after she had found Bella in the rain, Emily received a phone call from a woman named Susan, who had seen one of the posters she had put up when Bella first came into her life. Susan told Emily that she believed Bella was her dog, a beloved pet who had gone missing during a move across town. She described Bella in detail, down to the small white patch of fur on her chest, and there was no doubt in Emily's mind that she was telling the truth. Emily's heart sank. She had always known this moment could come, but it didn't make it any easier. Bella had become so much more than just a pet. She was family. Still, Emily knew that she couldn't keep Bella from her rightful owner. She arranged to meet Susan at a park later that evening. When the time came, Emily drove to the park with Bella sitting quietly in the passenger seat. There was a sadness in the air that neither of them could shake. Bella seemed to sense that something was about to change, and she pressed herself closer to Emily, her big brown eyes filled with confusion. At the park, Susan was waiting. She was a kind woman, and when she saw Bella, her eyes filled with tears. Bella too seemed to recognize her, though she hesitated for a moment before walking over to her original owner. Emily stood there watching, her heart breaking as Bella wagged her tail and nuzzled against Susan. It was clear that Bella had once been deeply loved by this woman, and Emily knew she was doing the right thing by letting her go. Still, it was one of the hardest things she had ever done. After a tearful goodbye, Emily left the park alone, her heart heavy with loss. The apartment felt unbearably quiet without Bella's presence, and Emily struggled to adjust to life without her loyal companion. For weeks, she missed Bella terribly, but she took comfort in knowing that the dog was back where she belonged. Years passed, and life moved on. Emily continued with her career, pouring herself into her work, but the memory of Bella never left her. She often thought about the dog she had rescued, wondering how she was doing, and hoping that she was happy. One fateful day, nearly 4 years after she had said goodbye to Bella, Emily's life changed in a way she never could have imagined. Emily had been going through a particularly difficult time. Work was stressful, and she had recently ended a long-term relationship, leaving her feeling more alone than ever. On a rainy evening, much like the one when she had first found Bella, Emily decided to take a walk to clear her head. As she walked through the city streets, lost in thought, she didn't notice the car speeding toward the intersection. It wasn't until she heard the screech of tires that she realized what was happening. The car was headed straight for her, and there was no time to react. Just as she braced herself for impact, something barreled into her from the side, knocking her to the ground and out of the path of the oncoming car. The vehicle sped past, missing her by inches. Dazed and disoriented, Emily looked up to see what had saved her, and there, standing protectively over her, was Bella. The dog, older now but unmistakably Bella, was staring down at her with those same soulful eyes, her body tense as if ready to defend Emily from any further danger. Emily's breath caught in her throat as she struggled to process what was happening. "Bella?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Bella wagged her tail, a soft whine escaping her throat as she nuzzled against Emily, her fur wet from the rain. Tears filled Emily's eyes as she reached out to stroke Bella's familiar fur, overcome with emotion. "How did you find me?" she asked, though she knew there was no answer. Susan, Bella's original owner, had moved to a different city years earlier, and Emily had thought she would never see Bella again. But here she was, standing before her, having saved her life in the most incredible way. It was as if Bella had never left. The bond they had shared all those years ago had somehow remained, unbroken by time or distance. Emily didn't know how Bella had found her or why she had come back at that exact moment, but she didn't care. What mattered was that the dog she had once rescued had returned, and in doing so, had saved her life. From that day forward, Bella stayed with Emily once again. Susan, who had heard about the miraculous reunion, graciously agreed that Bella and Emily belonged together. The years they had lost were now a distant memory, replaced by the joy of being reunited. And for the rest of her life, Emily never doubted that love, once given, has a way of coming back to us, often when we need it most.